Maryland and the Ravens. I love them both. And when you take a look at the season, the Ravens are 1-5, and Maryland's 2-4, with their victories over teams that you would be shocked if they didn't win. And yet, so when you really analyze it between both teams, you have one quality win this year, and that's over the Steelers. And we know the Ravens were pretty lucky to win that. This is every weekend.
Yeah, right? It's been a tough for the whole area. It's been tough.
Dunkin' Donuts gives away free coffee the day after a Ravens win.
I haven't had a lot of free coffee.
I've been waiting because I buy my secretary coffee every day. Yeah. So I've been waiting for that free one.
Well, but you planned out well. Figuring it's going to be the season that Sports Illustrated said it was going to be, which should be a near Super Bowl season. And you've hit the road to follow your team. What was it like? I know that the game didn't go great, but what was it like being in San Francisco?
Well, you and me were there for the Maryland-Stanford game, all right?
Yes.
And your whole family was there. And we had a great time. The stadium is awesome, all right? It was probably, half filled that day or whatever?
Yeah, they didn't really open the upper decks. How many people were there?
This was sold out, but I would say 10,000 no-shows, which is becoming an epidemic in the NFL right now. The no-shows are everywhere. It's an hour away, and the crowd, they're zealots. They really are zealots. They love the team. Unfortunately, I had an absolute drunk next to me who just tortured me the whole game. Finally, to the point where in the fourth quarter we moved seats, and their security was horrible, unlike Ravens Stadium. Ravens Stadium, you'll see the security today for an NFL-type game where it's unbelievable. I mean, it is just unbelievable how many people they have walking around. San Fran had nothing, but that stadium is awesome. You know that.
Right.
And
so where were your seats?
My seats were in the end zone, about 20 rows up, and they're great seats. And, and the Ravens were barely in the game, and I just had to take a lot of abuse from the fans about Torrey and Anquine. That the Ravens gave them up. I kept saying to him, do you think I'm happy about this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And although, let's be real, you, me, any person that dons a Maryland football hat or a Maryland football jersey, all right, could not be upset with Torrey, making a 76-yard touchdown pass. It was a great play. It's why the 49ers got him. Kaepernick threw the ball perfect, and I felt great for Torrey. I was just hoping we could still win. And then Anquine had an unbelievable game. He made the other catch that won the game. So he kind of stung a little bit, which brings us back to the Ravens. 1-5. Who in the world ever would have thought this team would be 1-5?
But I got to ask you to stand before we move on to the actual team. What was the food like in the stadium?
It's interesting. I should have talked about that. They have every imaginable food there possible. All right, tacos, a pit beef area, the usuals, the 18 kinds of hot dogs. They have seafood, they have sushi, they have everything, and the whole lower deck. The stadium's a little bit different because one side of the stadium is all skyboxes and club seats, and the rest of the stadium is regular seating. But their food there is just awesome.
That is still, we went in December for the bowl game.
Right.
The best food court I have ever been to. It just happened to be in a football stadium.
Right. It is. You're right. That's a great way of putting it. And the amazing thing is there's probably about 75 different stands, and no two alike.
Right. I had Indian food. I had kids had taco. I mean, we picked different nationalities. Everybody went and got their own food when we were there.
Right. And also, we had been in the club section for the Maryland game. And I'll tell you one thing that did bother me. I bought my tickets on Ticketmaster, figuring this was going to be a big game and it would be hard to get tickets. And they were. And the tickets were expensive. They were like $140, which is a lot for an end zone seat. And I checked about 3 days before the game. $50, $40, they were going for nothing. And there were empty seats everywhere. There are not a lot of Ravens fans, well represented, but not like normal.
How many were in your group?
In my group, just 4 of us, all right, myself and my wife and my son and daughter, my son-in-law and my daughter. And, access was easy, parking's easy, everything was easy, except the game stunk.
And the season hasn't been easy. When you pick this game to go to, I mean, anybody who looked at the schedule and where the Ravens were ranked, you'd say, well, we're going to go see a 5-1 team. And boy, San Francisco management big on Tom Sulo. They're going to do something. You watch the first game of the season. They beat the Vikings. Like, hey, maybe they got something. But it's been straight downhill. And Kaepernick went back to the bad Kaepernick against the Seahawks.
Well, he wasn't throwing to the bad secondary, against the bad secondary, which is the Ravens. And it's almost like whose turn is it this week to get torched? All right. I mean, we're going to Arizona. Look, how do you lose every game by a couple points? Well, Maryland. The Ravens have figured out a way. All right. Every game they're playing for the win. I didn't like this lack of urgency at the end of the game when guys were slowly getting up to the line as the game frittered away. Could have cost them one play. Joe thrown into quadruple coverage at the end to Steve Smith. You can understand why. Relying on Steve Smith with broken bones in his back, drops 2 balls, obviously hasn't practiced, isn't in top shape. Still, without him, the Ravens get blown out. All right. It's hard to go through and pick out great things. Joe's interceptions were just unbelievable. And I'm the biggest Flacco guy in the world. I love him. But we're 1-5, and there's been chances for us to drive and get there. But it just seems like so many times in big situations, the Ravens wind up settling for field goals. And field goals doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it. You got to get 7. And I think back to the Pittsburgh game when Coach Harbaugh threw caution to the wind and just, tried a fake field goal, just tried everything in the world. And sure enough, they came up with a victory. I think that's the only way they're going to have a shot to win a couple games.
I know you're going to say you are what your record says you are.
Yes.
However, every game seems like there's a point where in one more play, guy catches the ball instead of drops it, or drops it instead of catches it for the opposition, the Ravens win. They had leads in the fourth quarter, seems like week after week.
Except last week. But they still had the ball at the end, all right, with a chance to win. And
so it's still, there are bad teams out there. The Ravens have a poor record, and the defensive secondary is awful. But still, it seems like every week. Now, maybe that's because you got one of the best coaches on the planet, or Flacco really is that good. But it's just keeps seeming like it's one play away. If the Ravens went out and won 2 or 3 games in a row, maybe not the Cardinals, but if they went out and won 2 or 3 games after that, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think
you all of a sudden you look at the schedule when you're 1-5 and you know it's going to be tough to win this week. The Ravens are 7.5-point underdogs on the road. And then you come home to a guy who always has just torched our secondary in Phil Rivers, and then you get a bye week. So maybe after the bye week, between you and me, every time I watch my team play, I want to see him win. Maryland's 2-4 right now. A win today would put me in tremendous spirits. A win Monday night would put me in tremendous spirits if the Ravens win. But why are they going to win? You said you are what your record says. And when you look at 1-5 and you think back to the Pittsburgh game, how lucky we were to win that game, you wonder, could this be an 0-16?
Could be. But you look at the Cleveland game and go, well, we gave that away. You look at the game before, we gave that away. And so that balances out. But in years past, those games, the Ravens won those games. They had the last field goal. I remember how many times, so we got the best kicker in the world. Game's close. The game in Detroit a couple of years ago.
62-yard field goal.
I mean, you play the same game, except the Ravens are the team that makes the play at the end. And it's just not the game you went to in San Diego.
Unbelievable, 4th and 27.
Yeah, and you the team that makes the play. The difference now, team didn't go from great to horrible. The team went from the guys that can close the deal in the last 2 minutes to a team where that's not happening. But there's similar.
Well, the interesting stat came up, Wayne, that everybody's been talking about, that the Ravens, since winning the Super Bowl, are 19-19. Is that correct? I'm looking at my producer. 19-19. Now, what does that define? That defines mediocrity. And that's been about where they are. And even back to the Super Bowl year, The last 5 games of the regular season, they were 1-4. All right, and holy cow, they couldn't stop anybody then, a la Kirk Cousins taking the ball down the field against us. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right, and when it mattered, they couldn't stop. They just can't stop anybody when they have to. And I think the loss of Terrell Suggs has been about 20 times more important than people think. No matter, people say, well, you used to take off half the plays and this and that. He did, maybe. But you know what? The other half of the plays he played, he was unbelievable. And, sacks and making Doomerville better, it's been a tremendous loss.
I was either talking to Bucky or Freddie, one or the other. Says the other part you have to remember is because the Ravens win a lot, they always have the 28th pick in the draft. So the 28th.
That's hurt them. It's come back to haunt them. And when you fail with that pick, when you take a Perryman, all right, when you could have had Stephon Diggs in the 4th round, and I don't blame just the Ravens for this. I blame the Redskins too. They sit there and they watch this guy every game. And, I'm not going to sit there and tell you Harbaugh watches every Maryland game, but let me tell you, he knows who Stephon Diggs was, and he knows who Will Likely is, all right? And he knew who C.J. Brown was, and he knew who Danny O'Brien was, all right? So he knows these guys. And Stephon, gotta love it, made me so happy. 7 catches, 130 yards for the Vikings. They are talking about him like they do not understand how they got him in the 5th round.
And
we don't. Here's a guy who was catching umpteen balls and never had a quarterback at Maryland. Never had somebody who could throw the ball properly. All right? It never affected him.
But he can make plays.
He's a playmaker.
And what's missing right now from a couple of these teams is guys who can make plays when the chips are down and you got to make a play. Don't have a guy.
No doubt. All right, this is Bruce Posner. We'll head out to our second break, and we're going to come back and look at Maryland hoops closely, look around the NFL, look around some of the games in college football today. We'll be back in a few minutes here on CBS Sports Radio, 1300.
Okay. So for those of you watching, this is now our Sunday morning show here. It's a sort of in the nest replacement. As you probably know, In the Nest has been preempted this week by
NFL football this week and next week, and then the bye week. So we return on November the 15th, unless something happens of a magnitude where we'll have a show at another time.
So we will try and keep up the video part of this and probably do a segment next week on Saturday, and you guys will watch it on Sunday. But for Science and Kirk, as you know, friends of Bruce for over 50 years, this is our Science and Kirk in the Nest replacement show this Sunday.